Of boxing for the vacant.
Welcome to Sleepless History. The young Oscar De La Hoya. On July 29, 1994, he knocked out Jorge Paez 5-3, 6-4. In the second round to win the vacant WBO lightweight title, De La Hoya was nicknamed the Golden Boy of boxing by the media when he represented the United States at the 1992 Summer Olympics, where, shortly after having graduated from James A. Garfield High School, he won a gold medal in the lightweight division and reportedly set the sport back on its feet. De La Hoya was named the Ring Magazine Fighter of the Year in 1995 and was his top-rated fighter in the world, pound for pound. In 1997 and 1998, De La Hoya generated approximately $700 million in pay-per-view income, making him the top pay-per-view owner before being surpassed by Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Manny Pacquiao. He announced his retirement as a fighter in 2009, following a professional career spanning 16 years. In 2002, De La Hoya founded Golden Boy Promotions, a combat sport promotional firm that also owns a 25% stake in the Houston Dynamo. He is the first American of Mexican descent to own a national boxing promotional firm, and one of the few boxers to take on promotional responsibilities while still active. In 2018, he began promoting MMA matches as well, beginning with the 2018 trilogy bout between longtime rivals Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz, with the inaugural Golden Boy MMA event taking place on November 24. 2018, De La Hoya has held dual American and Mexican citizenship since 2002, when the Consulate General of Mexico in Los Angeles granted him Mexican citizenship. Reflecting his heritage, his parents emigrated from Mexico to the United States prior to his birth. He was born in East Los Angeles, California, to a boxing family. His grandfather, Vicente, was an amateur fighter during the 1940s, and his father, Joel Sr., had been a professional boxer during the 1960s. His brother, Joel Jr., was also a boxer. De La Hoya won the National Junior Olympics 119-pound title at age 15 after he lost a tournament in Whittier to Leon Hernandez from Santa Monica. He won the 125-pound title the following year. His amateur career included 234 wins, 163 by knockout, and 6 losses. Of those 6 losses, 2 were to Shane Mosley. In 1989, he won the National Golden Gloves title in the bantamweight division. In 1990, at age 17, he won the U.S. National Championship at featherweight and was the youngest U.S. boxer at that year's Goodwill Games, winning a gold medal. The joy of victory was tempered by the news that his mother, Celia Gonzalez De La Hoya, November 22, 1950 to October 28, 1990, was terminally ill with breast cancer. She died that October, expressing the hope that her son would one day become an Olympic gold medalist. As the 1992 Summer Olympics in Barcelona approached, De La Hoya turned his mother's dream into a strong focus for his training. After an upset victory in the first round over the Mexican boxer Julio Gonzalez, De La Hoya defeated German boxer Marco Rudolph to win gold. Rudolph had been the only fighter to defeat him in the years leading up to the fight, adding drama. The U.S. media publicized his quest to fulfill his mother's dying wish and nicknamed him the Golden Boy, which has remained with him throughout his career. In 2000, the Cecilia Gonzalez De La Hoya Cancer Center was formally opened by De La Hoya and his siblings at the White Memorial Medical Center WMC, with a $350,000 donation from De La Hoya in honor of their mother. Let's have a look back on November 23rd, 1992. De La Hoya made his professional debut by scoring a first-round TKO victory. De La Hoya was scheduled to fight Jesus Vidal Concepcion in a 10-round junior lightweight bout on December 9, 1993, televised by ESPN's Thursday Night Fights at the Paramount Theater in New York City, but pulled out due to a wrist injury. Some found the injury suspicious and speculated that Oscar was being overdramatic. Oscar said that he aggravated an old ligament injury while hitting the heavy bag a week before. Later that month, De La Hoya would fire his co-managers Middleman and Nelson over money issues. In his 12th professional fight, he won his first world title at age 20, stopping Jimmy Brettle 16-0 in the 10th round to win the WBO Super Featherweight title. He defended the title once, stopping Giorgio Campanella 20-0 in 3 rounds. On July 29, 1994, he knocked out Jorge Paez 5-3, 6-4 in the second round to win the vacant WBO lightweight title. In his first title defense, he defeated John Molina 36-3, who had recently vacated his IBF Super Featherweight title by unanimous decision on May 6, 1995. De La Hoya defeated IBF lightweight champion Rafael Ruelas 4-3-0 in a unification bout. De La Hoya knocked Ruelas down twice before the fight was stopped in the second round. The IBF then ordered De La Hoya to defend against Miguel Hoya. He relinquished the IBF title and defended the WBO title against undefeated Genaro Hernandez 3-2-0-1, who relinquished the WBA Super Featherweight title to fight De La Hoya. Hernandez quit after 6 rounds because of a broken nose. In his 6th and final defense of the WBO lightweight title, he knocked out Jesse James Leon 3-0, 1-2 in 2 rounds at New York's Madison Square Garden. On June 7, 1986, Oscar De La Hoya fought Mexican legend Julio Cesar Chavez 9-6-1-1 for the lineal and WBC light welterweight championship. De La Hoya, with a record of 21-0 with 19 KOs, defeated Chavez by a 4th round TKO. The fight was stopped due to several bad cuts suffered by Chavez above his left eye. Until their rematch in 1998, Chavez stated that De La Hoya did not defeat him since the fight was stopped. De La Hoya successfully defended his titles with a 12-round unanimous decision against undefeated former WBC lightweight champion and number 1 light welterweight contender Miguel Angel Gonzalez for 1-0-0 in 1997. De La Hoya moved up to the welterweight division and fought Pernell Whitaker for 0-1-1. The fight proved to be a difficult one. Whitaker frustrated De La Hoya with his defense and landed more overall shots than De La Hoya, but De La Hoya's power punches and aggression swayed the judges more in his favor. De La Hoya won a 12-round unanimous decision to capture the lineal and WBC titles. He also became the Ring Magazine's number 1 ranked pound for pound. On September 13, 1997, De La Hoya defeated Hector Camacho 6-3-3-1 by unanimous decision. On September 18, 1998, De La Hoya fought a rematch with Julio Cesar Chavez 1-0-0-2-2 and defeated him by 8-round TK. In his next bout, he faced undefeated former WBA welterweight champion at Cordy 3-4-0-1 and won by a somewhat disputable split decision. De La Hoya was knocked down once in the fight, while Cordy was down twice. He then defeated Obakar 4-8-2, won by 11th round TK. After 7 defenses of his lineal and WBC welterweight titles, De La Hoya fought rival and IBF champion Felix Trinidad 35-0 on September 18, 1999, in one of the biggest pay-per-view events in history, setting a record for a non-heavyweight fight. De La Hoya stayed just outside Trinidad's range while generating much success with his stiff jab and blitzing combinations. But in the last 2-3 rounds of the fight, heeding the strict instructions of his corner, who felt that De La Hoya was way ahead on the scorecards, De La Hoya shut down much of his offense and evaded trading with Trinidad. De La Hoya virtually gave away the last couple of rounds. Though landing well over 100 more punches, Trinidad was ultimately awarded a majority decision. The judges' scorecards came under question after the decision. Fans and boxing analysts called for a rematch, which never happened. On February 26, 2000, De La Hoya knocked out Daryl Coley 3-4, 1-2 in the WBC Eliminator. The WBC awarded De La Hoya his welterweight title, which he lost to Shane Mosley 4-0 by a split decision on June 17, 2000. One judge scored the fight 115-113 for De La Hoya, and the other 2 scored him 116-112 and 100 15-113 from Mosley. De La Hoya successfully sued Bob Arum in 2000 to break his contract with the promoter. The courts ruled in favor of De La Hoya in February 2001. De La Hoya defeated Arturo Gatti 33-4 by 5th round TKO on March 24, 2001. He then moved up to light middleweight, challenging millennial and WBC champion Javier Castillejo. De La Hoya won the fight, winning almost every round and knocking Castillejo 51-4 down with 10 seconds to go to win the title by a unanimous decision. On October 8, 2001, it was announced that De La Hoya will return to the Grand Olympic Auditorium, where he won his first title to defend his WBC light middleweight championship against the WBC #1 challenger Roman Carmaz. On November 8, 2001, it was announced the fight was canceled. Suffering from a torn cartilage in his left wrist, De La Hoya has been forced to cancel his December 8th title defense. He was hoping to fight again on May 4th, a date he had already reserved before the injury. It's an old injury, one that De La Hoya incurred in the first round of his 1999 fight against Carl. It was from the left hook I threw in that fight, De La Hoya said, and the pain has been there ever since. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say it was a 5 or 6 10 days ago, on his first day of sparring for the Carmaz match. De La Hoya threw a punch that severely aggravated the wrist. De La Hoya planned on facing a major opponent in May, Trinidad Mosley, Hawkins, or Vargas, and says he still hopes to do so if he can get WBC approval to put off his mandatory match. De La Hoya said the hand bothered him in his losses against Trinidad and Mosley. It was always bothering me, he said, but we are fighters and we have to tough it out. The fight seemed to have been cursed from the start. When Carmaz's two trainers, his manager, and his doctor were all denied visas, the Russian fighter had threatened to go home to train. Carmaz's promoter Frank Maloney went further, questioning whether the fight would happen. De La Hoya did not fight for the 15-month, and in this time the rivalry between him and WBA champion ferocious Fernando Vargas 22-1 grew. They knew each other as amateurs, and it is said the rivalry began when Vargas was angered by De La Hoya laughing at him after he fell into a snowbank. De La Hoya said he would never fight him. Eventually, however, De La Hoya accepted the match. The fight was scheduled for May 2002, but De La Hoya had to withdraw because of a hand injury. The unification bout, labeled Bad Blood, finally took place on September 14, 2002 at the Mandalay Bay on the Las Vegas Strip. The fight was even for the first 6 rounds, with Vargas landing punches on the ropes in the odd rounds, while De La Hoya outboxed him in the even rounds. De La Hoya took over the fight in the 7th round and hurt Vargas with a left hook in the 10th. In the next round, De La Hoya knocked Vargas down with a left hook and stopped him moments later. The win is widely considered to be the biggest of De La Hoya's career. Vargas tested positive for stanozolol after the fight. De La Hoya defended his unified title against Yuri Campus 80-5 with the routine 7th round stoppage, then faced Shane Mosley 38-2 in a rematch. The fight, billed as Retribution and staged at the MGM Grand Garden Arena, was more of a boxing match than their first encounter. And while some rounds were close, De La Hoya's game plan utilizing his jab seemed to be paying off, leaving Mosley visually frustrated. It was De La Hoya who seemed to be landing the cleaner, more effective punches, and obliterated Mosley in Q box, landing over 100 more. But judges apparently didn't see it that way, awarding Mosley with the controversial unanimous decision. Mosley was later connected to the Balco Lab steroid scandal. Jeff Nowitzki, a lead investigator on the Balco case, reported that documents seized from the lab show that Mosley received the clear and the cream, both designer steroids. Mosley reportedly began his doping regimen prior to his rematch with Oscar De La Hoya. Mosley would later admit to using performance-enhancing drugs from Balco for this bout, saying he thought they were legal supplements. De La Hoya next challenged Felix Sturm 20-0 for the WBO middleweight title on June 5, 2004, with the winner also getting a shot at the undisputed world middleweight champion Bernard Hopkins. De La Hoya was awarded a unanimous decision, becoming the first boxer in history to win world titles in 6 different weight divisions. All three judges scored the bout 115-113 in favor of De La Hoya. The decision was very controversial, far more so than his decision wins over Pernell Whitaker or Ike Cordy, whereas the Whitaker and Cordy fights were considered close bouts that could have gone either way or been called a draw. General opinion was that De La Hoya lost to Sturm, who box counted Sturm as landing 234,541 punches, while counting De La Hoya as landing 188,792. There had been some rumblings throughout the boxing community already before the fight that a decision would be made to ensure that De La Hoya would fight Hopkins in a $1 fight that would have drawn more money than Hopkins. Sturm matchup would. In Dark of Sky Sports said the decision looked tailor-made to set up De La Hoya versus Hopkins. De La Hoya got the benefit of high charity, Dark said. Sturm and his promotional team, Universum Box Promotion, filed a protest with the Nevada State Athletic Commission over the decision, but it was to no avail, and the decision still stands today. De La Hoya fought Bernard Hopkins for 4-2 in a unification match on September 18, 2004 in Las Vegas. Hopkins held the WBC, WBA, and IBF middleweight titles, was recognized as lineal and the ring champion, and was considered by many to be the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Although the fight was at a catchweight of 158 pounds, 72 kg, many thought De La Hoya was too small for the weight class, and Hopkins was considered a heavy favorite. Several days before the fight, De La Hoya's hand was cut when his wraps were being cut off after training, requiring 11 stitches to close. He and his corner both maintained it was not an issue going into the bout. De La Hoya fought the tactical fight. After 8 rounds, De La Hoya was ahead 77-75 on the scorecard and behind 78-74 and 79-73 on the other two. In the 9th round, Hopkins threw a left hook towards De La Hoya's body, sending him crumbling to the canvas, where he was counted out. It was the first time in De La Hoya's career that he had been KO'd. De La Hoya later stated that he couldn't get up because the pain of a well-placed liver shot was unbearable. Despite losing, De La Hoya made over $30 million from the fight. Hopkins eventually became a minor shareholder in Golden Boy and served as the East Coast representative for the company. Bob Arum claimed De La Hoya quit. Like Mosley, Hopkins would subsequently be represented by Golden Boy Promotions. De La Hoya took a layoff for 20 months before signing a fight WBC light middleweight title with Ricardo Mayorga 275-1. In the build-up to the fight, Mayorga insulted everything from De La Hoya's sexuality to his wife and child, but when they fought on May 6, 2006, De La Hoya knocked Mayorga down in the first minute of the fight with a left hook. He knocked him out in the 6th round to take his 10th world title. In early 2007, De La Hoya signed to defend his title against WBC welterweight champion Floyd Mayweather Jr. 3-7-0-0. De La Hoya was a 2-1 underdog in the fight. The fight took place on May 5, 2007 at a sold-out arena at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. De La Hoya pressed throughout, doing best when using his left jab. Mayweather controlled the later rounds and was awarded a split decision, with Judge Chuck Giampi scoring the bout 116-112 for Mayweather, Jerry Roth 115-113 for Mayweather, and Tom Kaczmarczyk 115-113 for De La Hoya. The Associated Press had it for Mayweather, 116-112. Although Oscar chased Mayweather and threw many combinations en route to throwing over 100 more total punches, Mayweather landed at a higher rate. According to CompuBox, he connected on 207 of 481 punches thrown. De La Hoya on only 122 of 587. On May 3, 2008, at the Home Depot Center in Carson, California, De La Hoya fought Steve Forbes, 33-5, in a tune-up for a possible rematch with Mayweather. De La Hoya showed a more relaxed style, throwing a constant jab and always staying on his toes. He opened a cut near Forbes' eye in the 6th round, going on to win by unanimous decision in 12. On June 6, 2008, Floyd Mayweather Jr. announced his first of many subsequent retirements from boxing, effectively ending talk of a rematch. De La Hoya faced Manny Pacquiao for a 7-3-2 on December 6, 2008 at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Presented by Golden Boy Promotions and Top Rank Incorporated, the bout was a 12-round, non-title fight at the 147-pound, 67 kg welterweight limit. Although Pacquiao went into the fight recognized as the leading pound-for-pound boxer in the world, some pundits speculated that 147 pounds could have been too far above his natural weight against the larger De La Hoya. However, Pacquiao's trainer Freddie Roach was confident of the victory as he stated that De La Hoya could no longer pull the trigger at that stage of his career. De La Hoya, who was favored to win the bout due to his size advantage, was expected to be the heavier of the two on fight night. However, though Pacquiao weighed 142 pounds, 64 kg, and De La Hoya 145 pounds, 66 kg, at the official weigh-in on Friday, De La Hoya entered the ring at 147 pounds to Pacquiao. De La Hoya took a beating and his corner stopped the fight after the 8th round. Pacquiao was ahead on all 3 judges' scorecards before the stoppage, with 2 judges scoring the fight 80-71 and the other judge scoring it at 79-72. After the bout, Pacquiao's trainer Freddie Roach stated, "We knew we had him after the first round. He had no legs, he was hesitant, and he was shot," confirming Roach's pre-fight predictions that he'd grown too old. De La Hoya crossed the ring to Pacquiao's corner after the bout was stopped and told Roach, "You're right, Freddie. I don't have it anymore." When asked by reporters whether he would continue fighting, De La Hoya responded, "My heart still wants to fight, that's for sure," De La Hoya said. "But when your physical doesn't respond, what can you do? I have to be smart and make sure I think about my future plans." De La Hoya announced his retirement on April 14, 2009, ending any speculation about a potential fight with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Son of the former champion and Mexican icon Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. Later in 2009, De La Hoya held an exhibition boxing fight versus basketball player Shaquille O'Neal as an episode of the television show Shaq vs. Looking back on November 25, 2020, De La Hoya told DAZN that "I'm 90% positive that I'm coming back the first quarter of next year," and that he was open to fighting Gennady Golovkin in the bout on June 17, 2021. It was announced that De La Hoya would return to the ring in an exhibition bout against Vitor Belfort on September 11, 2021, under the Triller at the Fight Club banner. On July 21st, it was announced that the match would not be an exhibition, and instead would be an official boxing match sanctioned by the California State Athletic Commission. Thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe to Sleepless Buddy. See you next time on Sleepless History.